Tell us about the different types of hardware that you guys use or used back in your public safety days, and kind of how you're seeing the industry evolve, what you're talking to people about today from a hardware perspective. This is a cool picture, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. That's the Loki 2 from Sky Hero during one of our training days at Huntington Beach. It's interesting. The industry is evolving as much as the equipment that we're using. In the early days, we kind of just flew what we had available. If we could get it through a door, we flew it indoors, and that's the nice thing is we kind of have the philosophy of being agnostic in our platforms. We have just indoor alone, we probably have 5 or 6 platforms that our students will fly. We want them to make the decision. We want them to have an exposure to all those drones, the Loki, the Brink, the Avata, the FPV drone, and anything else that we think will be beneficial for flying indoors. We give them the opportunity to make that decision themselves based on what they're flying. But
What is
in the
this
early
one?
days, I'm sorry.
What is this one?
That's the Evolve Dynamic Sky Mantis. It's a British company, very unique aircraft in my opinion. It's one of the few drones out there that has a tethered system that releases and gives you 40 minutes of flight time after the release. So you could be. It's got a Z30 camera in it. It's probably one of the highest rated waterproof and wind resistant drones out there. It's a monster. It's pretty big, but surprisingly it folds up pretty small.
Interesting.
So that was a test that we did to consider using that platform. So yeah, the industry evolves as programs started 4 or 5 years ago as basic, just get us a drone, get us operational, give us the opportunity to get a few wins where we can impress upon the decision makers in our department to expand the program. So we kind of push that, like don't start big, start with what you can achieve. Don't promise something you can't deliver. And then once you start showing the value of these platforms, your program will naturally expand and grow. So all those agencies that started 3 or 4 years ago are now looking for the more advanced platforms. They're looking to upgrade. Their budgets are a little bigger, so they're going from maybe the FPV. Maybe from a Mini 2 indoors to now they want to buy something like the Brink or the Loki, depending on the circumstances. So
Right.
We give them that opportunity to grow with the industry.
Well, Tim, you're right. Just looking at the 2 drones, you sent us pictures of. It's almost like in the legal world, when people ask us this question, we say it depends. I imagine the hardware, it's kind of the same answer when someone asks you, like, what kind of drone, does a public safety agency need? It really depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? And some of these that you're talking about, like Dave, you mentioned indoor tactical operations, that's GPS denied. I mean, GPS is not going to fly your drone inside, right? So that takes a special kind of drone to achieve that. So I'm going to ask you, Dave, we got a question from the audience. I think this one's directed to you because you were talking about indoor tactical response. Kay Cruz, one of our regulars is out there, asked, does a machine like Skydio help do a room-to-room search better, where your pilot is doing more overview than piloting? In other words, more autonomy, I guess is what he's trying to ask. What drones are used in your training? And this is like a compound question. Let's ask for the first one. Does a machine like Skydio has more autonomous features, right? Does that help better in like searching, not clearing a room from your perspective?
From my perspective, no. But I will say this: technology is evolving, so there are aircraft and other tools that can be used autonomous in buildings and all. It has developed. They're still working it out. But when it came to like Skydio and all, nothing bad about Skydio. It's just it did not work well indoors for us. So We went with Brink, and there's other aircraft out there, so we don't just teach one specific aircraft. It's normally up to the organization. Whatever they own is what we'll teach them to fly indoors tactically, or help them understand what aircraft would best fit their needs when it comes to tactical indoor flights.
Okay, great. And actually, you kind of answered question two here, which is what drones are used in your training. So you kind of hit on that using a lot of Brink there. Tim, how about over to you? Like you alluded to it, we saw a couple images here, but what's kind of the range of different hardware solutions that you're using in your training?
A lot of what we do is based on what industry is using. So we try to mirror the industry. When new aircraft come out, we'll get them for training. But for the most part, we're hard on training aircraft. So we have a lot of beginner students that have never touched a drone before that are flying. So we kind of stick with the ones that are have the most longevity for training. And a lot, the Evo 1. For training is one of the best platforms that we use. It's a workhorse. It's solid. The old Mavic Air 1 is probably the most durable drone there is out there, based on the abuse that we put it through for indoor stuff. But for the most part, we're using everything: DJI, Evos, Skydios, you name it. Especially if a vendor. We have a lot of vendors that will donate their aircraft to us for training. Number one, to get the exposure of their drone in the hands of public safety. We've trained last year. I think we were over 1,000 students. So that's pretty good exposure for any vendor to have a drone. So if a vendor provides us with a platform, it's going to be in the hands of the students. So that's the beauty of being a nonprofit and being agnostic is. I don't want to push any one. I have my favorites, but I don't want to push any one platform on any student or any department for that matter, because every situation is different. Every department has different issues that affect what platforms and how they're using them, from rural to urban to political